believe it or not, just behind this parking place, we had a harbor in the ancient time. So the agora, it was a commercial agora, it was not far from the harbor. This is the place it is located. That first city was settled here. You see this called Old Smyrna. This is why we think that from the 1000 BC the city was there. But even before that, there was another settlement on this part that doesn't show this map. So 1, 2, 3 sides, and this is the third location of the city that we will visit together. Today, modern coast is here. You see how old this area, what's happened? It's silted in. The river, it's continued, and then the Melis River. The image, it says that they found a coin, and this coin is in the Izmir Museum, Izmir Archaeological Museum. You see Alexander the Great is sleeping there, and his dream is seeing those two muses. They are just whispering that he has to move the city from the place where it is, and move the city to the mountain. Okay? Mount of Pagos. There is a mere tree here. Alexander is sleeping here. He is not very handsome here, and you can see he's quite ugly in this image. But anyway, this is that they believe that because of this dream, he decided to move the city. But you know,
it's the genitive of seismos, earthquake. Seismic activity. This is where we get in English from, and the disasters of an earthquake. And we know there was a bad one here in 177, 178. So this is probably when this was erected afterwards to celebrate his generosity.
Here we have one coin. That's the coins that gives us lots of information on this coin that you can see at the top of Calva. The city had 3 temples dedicated to the emperors, which means the city was 3 times Neocoros. Then in Sardis today in the inscription we saw 2 times Neocoros of Asia. Now we see this here for 3 times. So they are very, very proud to be Neocoros, and it's reflected also in the coins of the city.
So I'll just talk briefly now. We're going to be talking more about this phenomenon that Cenk's been mentioning of the coming in Neocoros. Next 19 is where we see the word appear with the Artemis temple when the town clerk is talking to him, and he says the whole world knows about Ephesus that you are the Neocoros of the temple of Artemis. So in that case, they're talking about being it originally starts out literally with a person who sweeps the temple and cares the temple. Later that word is expanded to a city. The goal is to protect and to take care of the temple and the city. So after the Battle of Actium in 31, and the Romans now come in, Octavian takes charge. The cities of Asia were with Mark Antony. They thought that Octavian was going to punish them. He didn't. He had mercy and reconciled them, allowed them to maintain their status as free cities. And so in response to that, they decided they want to build imperial cult temples to worship him as a god. And so the first temple was built then in Pergamum in 29 BC. We will be in Pergamum tomorrow, but we will see nothing of that particular temple. It's built in the lower city where the modern city is, so we won't see anything of where that location is. The second temple was built in this city in AD 26. So there's a big competition for the right to build the second temple. So all the cities in the province of Asia sent representatives to a provincial-wide assembly called the Koinon. And so the head of the Koinon were called the Asiarchs, the rulers of Asia. Okay, these are the friends of Paul mentioned in Acts 19. And so the Koinon decided we want to build a second temple. And so 12 cities in the province of Asia submitted bids to the Roman Senate for the right to build a temple. The 2 finalists came down to Sardis and to Smyrna. And so as each city went to Rome, presented their case, just like people do today, they get bids for the Olympics or sporting event or something. They presented the pluses of their city. Well, it came down to the fact that the Smyrnians reminded the Romans that even before Asia became a Roman province, they had built a temple to Roma, the patron deity of Rome, here in the city around 177 BC, 50 years prior to that, and it helped the Roman armies that were fighting here at that time. The Smyrnians helped the Romans who were fighting here at this time, and so as a result of that, the Senate dismissed the claim or the application of Smyrna and awarded the temple here. Where that temple is, we don't know. It's somewhere around us here under these buildings. So it's not till we get to the time of the third temple that's being built. We'll see that on Friday, the foundations of that in Ephesus. So the Romans were very reluctant to award a temple to Ephesus because they said, "You've got the great temple of Artemis. You know, we don't want this competition." What they did, though, is they awarded a sanctuary to Deo Roma and Julius Caesar at the same time for Romans, because the Romans would not worship a living emperor as a divine being. Only the Greeks in the east after Alexander began to do that. There was also a temple at the same time built in Nicomedia, the capital of the province of Bithynia, and a sanctuary similar to the one in Ephesus in Nicaea. And so this was not just an Asia phenomenon, but also in Bithynia as well. So this is the whole beginnings of the imperial cult, and this becomes an important background.
Another big roof at the top. So 2 layers. When I say there's one store here that people can walk, can shop, and also there's another one here that again, with the steps they were able to go up. But this structure, this is what you are saying, it is this part of this. And there is also a base at the bottom. See? That's the base. So technically we will enter from this base and we will not see those structure because it doesn't exist anymore.
We're heading into the basement of the Basilica.
And we only have probably his cognomen, which is Paulus, and he uses that name when he's traveling around. One of the famous Strabo from Amasia, likewise, was born a Roman citizen in the Greek East, and we only have one of his 3 names. So it's not unusual that the full names have not been passed down to us. So the triple name there, and he is the Neocorus of the emperor of the Sebastones. So this is our keywords, Neocorus, once again. So he is the one then that's in charge here in Smyrna of maintaining the temple for the imperial cult. In this group called an Asiarch that lives in the city of Ulan Menopleia, the Ophanton. So he's probably in some relationship to that. And, we have mentioned that the polis of Smyrna here has erected this in honor of this citizen of the city who's an Asiarch. So he's one of those representing the city on the koinon, or the representative council of the province of Asia. So 2 interesting inscriptions we've got here.
Okay, friends, from that point, on our way back, at that point, we can see the mountain of Pagos Mountain, the Turkish flag. On the left side of this flag, you can see some part of the ancient castle, but this is not.
Yeah, no, it's in the Apostolic Fathers. You can read the account called the Martyrdom of Polycarp. Various dates for it. The one around the mid-150s seems to be the most plausible to me, anyway. But the church in Smyrna here sent it to the church in Thalamelium, which is a town just over the mountains from Pisidian Antioch, and telling the account of their bishop who attempted to flee and turned himself back in. So Kristen is going to share a little bit tomorrow about his research related to Polycarp on our way up to Pergamon. But he, before he died, gave, so he was brought before the emperor, okay, and basically this became one of the issues that the Romans had against the Christians is that they asked them to swear to the genius of the emperor and to forsake the atheists. And so the curious thing is that the Christian community at this time were called atheists. Well, why? Well, you had a real religion in the ancient world. You had a temple, okay, and then you needed priests to serve in the temple, and you had sacrifices offered up. And the Jews, by this time, of course, had lost their temple, but all the pagan cults had this, and so when the polytheists, as opposed to the atheists that we call them today, looked at the Christians, they had none of the vestiges of a real religion: priesthood, temple, or sacrifices. Of course, we know the theological reasons for all of that. We are the temple of the Holy Spirit. Jesus is the once and all sacrifice for sin, and we are, from a Protestant perspective, they were all priests who are serving before God. And so as he enters the stadium there, he's asked to forsake the atheists, that is the Christians, and he looks out at the pagans and, away with the atheists. So that's really one of the great things that is part of the story that's a bit humorous there. Of course, he ends up dying, and he comes from a first significant martyr account. And then again, when he refuses to apostatize, he gives the famous confession, for 86 years he has done me no wrong. How can I forsake the Lord who saved me? And so this is a confession of faith that's rung out throughout the centuries. So this all happened right here in Smyrna with Polycarp. He was believed to be a disciple of John. Whether or not that actually happened, but there is definitely a link here. And of course, Irenaeus is from the city too, ends up in Lyon. So
we are here in Smyrna. Actually, the modern name for that is Izmir. It's a city of over 4 million people now. And so it's a really big city, but this is the ancient city of Smyrna, and these are the ruins behind me of what they call the Agora, or the meeting place, sometimes a marketplace. And it's just really expansive here. The harbor is just over the horizon to the Aegean Sea over there. And Smyrna was one of the 7 churches in Revelation, I believe. One of the ones that was not rebuked by Jesus, but only commended. And so it's been a really powerful trip so far for both of us here. And you see the pillars behind me, and the previous videos that I shot with columns. I mean, just the architecture and structure, and the buildings are all magnificent here. But one story I want to bring up to you tonight about Smyrna. We're standing here at, it's about almost 5 o'clock p.m. Is the martyrdom of Polycarp. So Polycarp was a tradition says that he was a disciple of John the Apostle, and at the end of his life, he's in Smyrna. He's the bishop of Smyrna, and the Roman Empire is cracking down on that and Christians. And so at the end of his life, he's brought to the stadium, and he's about to die. And the famous saying that he makes in front of the whole crowd at the stadium, and if you'll look up there, there are 3 antennas, if we can get them in the picture, 3 antennas up there. That is where they have found the stadium. They haven't excavated it yet, but the stadium is up there where all the gladiatorial feats, the lions and all that, it was all held there. And this is where Polycarp went to meet his maker, and he was brought before everyone. He was said that he would receive mercy if he renounced Jesus. And the famous saying that I'm going to paraphrase here is that 86 years have I served the Lord, and he has done me no wrong. How then can I now forsake my master? And so at that point, he's executed. And it's just really powerful. The next generation after the disciples, being a disciple of John, still serving the Lord faithfully. And you know the famous saying, the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. And so we're seeing all the cities here, 7 churches in all these cities where the apostles and disciples gave their lives for our Lord. And so, in a certain sense, that's what we are doing when we come together to pray, is we're sacrificing our own desires, our own wants to go and make a difference here on the earth. And one of the things that somebody mentioned to me while we were here on this trip is they brought up Isaiah 62. Isaiah 62 22:7, and you can look it up for yourself, but it says something like this. It says, give him no rest until Jerusalem is a light again to the nations. And so I'm paraphrasing that as well, so you guys can look that up and read it correctly. But that's what we're doing. When we say push, pray until something happens, that's what we're saying. We're not going to give God rest like the persistent widow in the Gospels. We're not going to give God any rest until we see his kingdom come here on the earth. It's Revelation 2:8. To the angel of the church in Smyrna write the words of the first and the last, who died and came to life. I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich, and the slander of those who say that they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Do not fear what you are about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison, that you may be tested, and for 10 days you will have tribulation. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life, the wreath of life. Right? He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. The one who conquers will not be hurt by the second death.